fluid, it's continuous. So you don't gain or lose anything. So punctuality, or the definition of punctuality, differs from culture to culture. So those who belong to monochronic culture tend to be more punctual, because for them, they tend to do one thing at a time, finish things on time, schedule things. You have all these charts and whatnot and reminders to do things one at a time, and they are usually punctual with their appointment schedule as well. On the other hand, those who belong to polychronic culture, for them time is flexible and fluid. So appointment times are flexible, and they might multitask as well. All right. So we've gone through context, economics, we high uncertainty and low uncertainty. Now, there's just one more category left of the different types of culture. So let's recap what we have done so far in the chapter. We are learning how to communicate interculturally. We talked about what is intercultural communication. We talked about characteristics of, I think, um, oh, we talked about dominant culture, co-culture. We then started talking about how cultures differ. Now, why is this important? How cultures important differ is important because when we are analyzing interactions, we need to understand how the participants of the communication are differing. In what angle are they differing? Okay, আবার বলছি. So when we're analyzing the text, because আমাদের তো সবই analytical answer দিতে হবে. When we're analyzing participants in an interaction or in a communication setting, we need to understand the background of the participants to answer যে this person comes from low context culture, this person comes from high context culture. আমাদেরকে বলতে হবে এটা। এই কারণে ওদের একটা intercultural communication barrier create হয়েছে। But there have been this issue or confusion happened because one belongs to polychronic culture and has comes from high context culture. So we need to use the terms, and in order to use the terms, we need to understand the differences between them. All right. So the last category that I'm going to be talking about with when it comes to cultural differences is masculinity and femininity. That means that cultures also differ in terms of how they view the gender roles in a society. It's not about patriarchal versus matriarchal. It's about viewing how gender roles are, fixed or not fixed. Okay, so you have masculine culture where men and women are expected to adhere to traditional gender roles and behaviors. That means that in masculine cultures, you have expected gender roles. Men do this, men don't do that. Women do this, women don't do that. It is expected that women are more nurturing, more caregiving, more service oriented, whereas men are expected to be, in leadership positions, in more ambitious, career oriented. This expectation is a cultural thing. So that means that culture is a masculine culture. And majority of the time, masculine cultures are also patriarchal cultures, where a man is the head of the family. And men's priorities are higher than a women's priorities. Okay, because you have gender roles. That's why আমরা এখানে, if a man wants to study nursing, চিন্তা করো দেখো, a man wants to study nursing. Okay, how is that man going to face the society? Nursing পড়বে।
সবাই বলবে এটা মেয়েদের সাবজেক্ট, এভাবে হচ্ছে তাকে
Exactly.
ক্যাটাগরাইজ করবে।
So আমরা category already করে রাখছি। From the day we are born, we were told যে nurse is a woman thing. Nurse is a woman thing. এই জন্য কেউ মেল নার্স বলে না। যারা নার্সিং ছেলেরা পড়ে তাদেরকে কি বলে? ওয়ার্ড বয় বলে। খুব কম হচ্ছে কি মেল নার্স বলা হয় in our culture. But বাইরে গেলে দেখবা there are a lot of male nurses. Okay, so that's the thing. You have expected area of discipline that Women are expected to study, and men are expected to study. That is why still engineering is a profession that is mostly driven by men in our culture. যে মহিলাদেরকে দিয়ে ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং পড়বে, হাউ ইজ দিস পসিবল? এখন পর্যন্ত এত প্রগ্রেসিভ সোসাইটি হওয়ার পর্যন্ত পরও আমাদের হায়ারিং এ, জব হায়ারিং এ জেন্ডার সেগ্রিগেশন করা হয়, বিকজ উই বিলং টু দ্যাট ম্যাসকুলিন কালচার যেখানে এক্সপেক্টেড জেন্ডার রোলস আছে। ওকে, on the other hand, a feminine culture is not a matriarchal culture. A feminine culture is actually a culture যেখানে কোনো set norms or roles নাই for genders. So that means both genders can do what they want. There is no traditional binding of gender roles. So a man can still stay at home and the woman can still go outside and earn money. That is fine. Okay. So in highly feminine culture, people assume a variety of roles and are valued for doing so regardless of their gender. So in feminine cultures, both men and women are accustomed to being nurturing, caring, and service oriented and value those traits as much as performance, ambition, and competitiveness. Clear so far? So
Yes.
matriarchal culture is not feminine culture, by the way. A feminine culture এর মধ্যে basically হচ্ছে কি কোনো traditional gender roles নাই. Okay. Moving on, we are done with this segment, which is segregating or differentiating different types of culture by looking at different traditions. Now we're going to be looking at how to improve our intercultural communication skills. Okay. So developing intercultural communication competence. Developing intercultural communication competence. We want to become good at communication, intercultural communication. It doesn't have to be exactly like East versus West. It could be East versus East as well. But we still need to be able to communicate without raising a alarm, like offending the other person. How do we do so? The first step in becoming good at intercultural communication is being aware of what are the barriers. What are barriers? Barriers জিনিসটা কি? Any idea? You don't know the meaning of barrier?
কোন একটা বাধা বা কোন একটা কাজ করতে যাওয়ার আগে যে চ্যালেঞ্জেস গুলা বা সোশ্যাল প্রেসার।
Okay. This means that it's a wall. It's a barrier, it's a barricade, it's a wall, it's an obstacle. So we need to be aware of what are the common obstacles of becoming good at intercultural communication. Number one is anxiety. Now, it is absolutely normal to have some level of anxiousness before we start intercultural communication. I mean, fear is normal. We know that. Mobashir, Shubha Shakal,
Sorry, ma'am, I'm a bit late. Sorry, ma'am.
a bit. It's an online class, and you're still 16 minutes late.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
26 minutes in total. It's an online class. You don't even have to wake up to travel. Assuming you're still on the bed right now,
No, no, ma'am. I'm at my desk.
on your desk.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure?
Yes, ma'am. If I can turn my cameras on.
Okay. Moving on. If anxiety is prevalent for a prolonged period of time, then it can impede your communication. Okay. Moving on, we have assumed similarity. We have assumed similarity. Hold on. 9 ফেব্রুয়ারি, আজকেই তো 9 ফেব্রুয়ারি, 12 ফেব্রুয়ারি রাত 12টা পর্যন্ত। We're getting texts from the banks that online transactions are going to be halted for a while. অলরেডি আজকে সকাল 12টা থেকে এনপিএসবি ট্রানজাকশন বন্ধ করে দিয়েছে টিল 12 তারিখ 13 তারিখ পর্যন্ত। অলরাইট, moving on is assumed similarity or difference. Remember, in forming impression, we talked about implicit personality theory and assumed similarity. Does anyone remember what they were? Implicit personality theory and assumed similarity. কি পড়িয়েছিলাম?
মানে আমরা যে জায়গা যাব ওই এক্সপেকটেশনটা মানে আমরা যেখান থেকে বিলং করছি ওইখানের কালচারও সেম থাকবে এরকম একটা এক্সপেকটেশন ব্যাক অফ দ্য মাইন্ডে।
Mm, yes and no, both actually. So, say for example, when we say, "Oh, acha, we're going to India," that means India and Bangladesh are the same culture. AG assumption, it can be very misleading. That is assumed similarity. Or we're going to America, the American people are very different. We should like avoid them or kichwetta. They're going to be completely different from us. This assumption is also incorrect. So one of the other barriers of intercultural communication assumption is this assumption they're similar or they're different. Number three, very common, is ethnocentrism. It's the belief that one's own culture is superior to others. Growing up, I continuously heard from my surrounding, Jay, our culture is better than the Western culture. Our dresses are better. Our culture is more vibrant and colorful. Our food is very different, but theirs is bland. Did you ever hear these things growing
Yes,
up?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
This is a
Especially the
classic
Western
example.
culture. Yeah.
This is a classic example of ethnocentrism, where we start believing that we are better than the other people. Mr. Trumper uh, নীতি যেটাকে বলে, we are better, they are not. We are superior, they are inferior. Okay, so there's this whole thing about superior race. Like Hitler thought himself to be from the Aryans, who thought themselves to be the more superior race. Okay, this feeling of superiority complex is called ethnocentrism, and this is a huge barrier to intercultural communication. Next is stereotyping. Now, I think we all know what stereotyping is, right? Remember from chapter 2?
Yes, ma'am.
So, what is stereotyping?
Ma'am, we basically judge something based on one or two traits or something we have followed by the. Sorry, ma'am. Excuse me.
No, it's fine. You were close. So, we basically judge people by the group they belong to. That's called stereotyping. So, one belongs to a particular group, we think that the characteristics of the entire group belongs to that particular person as well. Next up is incompatible communication code. We talked about code switching in this chapter. Does anyone remember what code switching is? Or did we not talk about code switching? Code switching পড়েছিলাম?
কোড সুইচিং হচ্ছে মানে একটা কথা বলতে গিয়ে আরেকটা ভাষায় কথা বলা, যেমন বাংলিশ, মানে আমরা যে মানে বাংলা বলতে বলতে ইংলিশ বলে ফেলি, আবার ইংলিশ থেকে আবার হিন্দিতেও যাই মাঝে মাঝে এরকম।
Okay, code switching is just more, it's not just limited to language. Code switching is essentially switching the language, and along with the language, also switching the characteristics of the language as well. Say, for example, কথা বলতে বলতে, think about it. I am speaking both in Bangla and English right now. Okay, but কথা বলতে বলতে, if you see the changes that I make, আমি যখন ইংলিশ বলছি তখন আমার পিচ, টোন, অ্যাকসেন্ট, প্রনাউন্সিয়েশন কিরকম হচ্ছে বা মুখের ভঙ্গিটা কিরকম হচ্ছে versus when I'm talking in Bangla, what exactly am I using? Is it the same? It's not. So when you're switching between Bangla and English, you're not just switching the language, but you're also switching pronunciation, accent, the way you say it, expressions, everything all together, right? নাকি আমরা একইভাবে বাংলা ইংলিশ বলি?
No, no, different.
Exactly. So this is called code switching. Now, code essentially means language. So one of the biggest barriers of intercultural communication is obviously language. But even when you're speaking the same language, you can still have intercultural communication barrier. How so?
ডিফারেন্ট ডায়ালেক্ট এর কারণে, কারণ একজন চাটগেয়ার ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ আর একজন বরিশালের মানুষের ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের মধ্যে ডিফারেন্স আছে। তারা যখন তাদের নিজস্ব ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে কথা বলবে কেউ কারোর কথা বুঝবে না।
অথচ ভাষা কিন্তু এক মোটামুটি।
ইয়েস ম্যাম।
Okay, that's the thing. You can use the same language and still have issues understanding with each other, not just the accent or the dialects, but also use of vocabulary and expressions as well. So, people in West Indies speak English. People in America speak English. Do they speak the same English? Do you think they will have flawless communication?
No.
Not really, exactly. So that is called incompatible communication code. Finally, we have incompatible norms and values. As I previously said, culture and communication go hand in hand. So, culturally, we may have different values and rules and regulations that can impede communication. For example, in my culture, আমি এটা আগেও এক্সাম্পলটা দিয়েছি, ইটস a very good example, এই জন্য বারবার দিচ্ছি আমি। In my culture, it is perfectly normal for a student to give salam to a teacher, even if the teacher is not directly the student's teacher. So, especially in my particular context, আমার কনটেক্সটে আমি যখন ক্যাম্পাসে থাকি, I have my teacher work ID on. So if a random student, someone who's not even my own student, random student gives me salam, I will not get shocked. It is expected. সে দিবে এবং সেটা আমি নিব। আমি শক্ত হব না, I will not feel a bit uneasy about it, যে আমার তো স্টুডেন্ট না, সে আমাকে কেন সালাম দিচ্ছে। Because for me, it is acceptable, it is not new যে someone will give me salam because I'm a teacher. It's a cultural thing. Outside, it's not the case. So your incompatible cultural values also contribute to impeding intercultural communication. So the first step in becoming good at intercultural communication is to become aware of the barriers. Next, we need to acquire accurate knowledge. That means we need to do some study. Can you imagine সেই শত শত বছর আগে যখন মানুষজন ইন্টারকালচারাল কমিউনিকেশন করতো, তারা কেমনে স্টাডি করতো মানুষদেরকে? এখন তো না তোমাদের এআই এন্ড গুগল আছে, এন্ড ইন্টারনেট আছে। হোয়াট অ্যাবাউট পিপল আগের দিনে মানুষজন কি করতো?
ম্যাম, যে যেখানে যেটা শুনে আসতো ওটা দিয়ে মানে জাজ করা শুরু করতো বা স্টিরিওটাইপ ফলো করতো এরকম।
স্টিরিওটাইপও তো তোমার তখন ডিফিকাল্ট হতো। ক্যান ইউ জাস্ট ইমাজিন ফার্স্ট ট্রেডিং, তখন তো ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজও বুঝতো না। চায়না থেকে একজন লোক প্রথমবার ধরো বোটে করে ইন্ডিয়া আসলো, জাস্ট ইমাজিন, প্রথম চাইনিজ ল্যান্ডিং অন ইন্ডিয়া।
Basically a deaf guy and a blind guy. And he can't even
Yes,
speak and he can't even listen.
exactly. But it's not something that you will probably have a hard time imagining it, but it probably happened. It probably definitely happened. It's just, um, we've all heard about Christopher Columbus. Who was he? Christopher Columbus?
Discoverer of America.
Exactly. So Christopher Columbus landing in America for the first time found a new land. Along with them, found new people. দুজন দেখতে একই রকম, একদম আলাদা, ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ আলাদা, কাপড় চোপড় আলাদা। একজন নিজেদেরকে খুব সিভিলাইজ মনে করে, আরেকটা গ্রুপ ছিল পুরো আনসিভিলাইজড। So they brought civilization with them when they invaded Americas. I'm going to be using the word invasion. Okay. On that, there is a movie, a very old movie. If you're ever interested in these sort of things, it's almost accurate, but never not. Movies are never really accurate. But there's a very good movie from 1990s, early 90s. It's called 1492 Conquest of Paradise. If you're interested, you can watch that movie. 1492 A Conquest of Paradise. It's on this Columbus's discovery, and there's a very nice music as well. So we need to acquire accurate knowledge by studying them, observing the people, and as well as being among them, immersing ourselves. Next, we also need to adopt appropriate attitude. That means we need to be open-minded, we need to have empathy and sympathy, and we need to tolerate ambiguity as well. If we don't do that, নিজেকে যদি ক্লোজ করে রাখি, একঘেয়েমি চিন্তা করি, we're not going to be able to improve our communication skills. Finally, we also need to develop our own culture centered skills by making sure we listen first before we react, we practice empathy, and we need to be flexible in our mindset as well. Only by this, we can become good at intercultural communication. And with this, the chapter is over. That was up to that chapter was your quiz syllabus. Up to that chapter was your quiz syllabus. কুইজ নিয়ে আমি একটু কিছুক্ষণ পরে বলছি। Let's move on to chapter 4. Verbal messages. It's a very small chapter. And for those of you who are going to be taking linguistics, this is a more like a familiar chapter for linguistics major. It's called verbal messages. এর পরেরটা হচ্ছে কি non-verbal, which is more important. So, এখন পর্যন্ত, look at the sequence that we have done so far. We first started talking about what is communication in general, talked about factors that influence communication. In chapter 2, we talked about how perception influences communication. Then in chapter 3, we talked about different types of culture that influences communication. Now we're moving on to messages, verbal and non-verbal, for communication. Messages, both verbal and non-verbal, for communication. So messages can be, একদম প্রথম চ্যাপ্টারে বলেছিলাম, messages can be both oral, they can be written, they can be images as well, how we send messages and decode messages. So in this chapter we're talking about language itself, the verbal messages, the actual ভাষা যেটা আমরা ব্যবহার করছি. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have studied the definition of language in school, especially বাংলাতে ভাষার সংজ্ঞা। ভাষার সংজ্ঞা কি?
মনের ভাব প্রকাশ করার জন্য আমরা যা ব্যবহার করি।
Okay. So if I ask you to say the same thing, what is language? What do we say? What
A
is the
verbal
definition of
way of communication.
any way, any random wow wow call it, it's fine, it's language.
Yeah, maybe right.
Yes,
Which has meaning.
meaning.
সাইন
So
ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ।
where do we get meaning from?
Words, letters, alphabet, words.
Who fixes these words, letters, and alphabets?
Culture.
You see,
Sounds, dhoni.
yeah, sounds is a part of it. Okay, see, there's a lot of things that we take for granted, but we never actually ask questions because we don't have the natural curiosity. If you have natural curiosity, ছোটবেলায় হয়তো ছিল, কিন্তু তখন অত কমপ্লিকেটেড জিনিসপত্র মাথায় আসেনি। যখন বড় হয়ে গেছি, কমপ্লিকেটেড জিনিসপত্র বোঝা শুরু করেছি, আমাদের ন্যাচারাল কিউরিয়াসিটি ইভেন্চুয়ালি ডিমিনিশড হয়ে গেছে। হ্যাভ ইউ এভার থট যে আমরা যে কথা বলছি, why is it so different? Why our language is so different? Why is it so difficult to pronounce va, the V sound in Bangla? There is none. Why do we have language like this? Why are our words like that? কেন বাংলা ভাষায় আকার উকার রসিকার দীর্ঘিকার আছে কিন্তু ইংলিশে নাই? We have just taken language for granted without being curious about why certain phenomena are happening. Or a very simple, I mean, spelling night with a NIGHT, night with KNIGHT. You see all these memes. English language is so complicated, right?
Yes, ma'am.
মিম তো ঠিকই বানাও তোমরা। নাইট একই pronunciation, night and night. One is with a K, one is without a K. দুটা different word, different meaning. Why did that happen?
It's vowels and consonanted জন্য।
আছে, okay. Or say bus, buses. Plural করছো, ছোটবেলায় শিখেছি আমরা class 1 2 তে। Bus, buses. Then why is it child and children?
সিঙ্গুলার প্লুরাল।
সিঙ্গুলার প্লুরাল তো ঠিকই আছে কিন্তু আমি ফর্মের কথা বলছি। বাস থেকে বাসেস হয়েছে, ক্যাট থেকে ক্যাটস হয়েছে, so we are adding the s to make it plural. But why is it child থেকে children, ox থেকে oxen? কোনোদিন কিউরিওসিটি বাধে নাই কেন
মিস
হলো?
মিস হয়েছে, বাট আমরা ভেবে নিতাম যে এটাও শুনতে ভালো লাগে তাই।
Does anyone know the answer to my question? Actually nobody. যারা linguistics পড়বেন তারা হয়তো বা পড়বেন এটা। Good luck with that. It's called the great vowel shift. Anyway, I'm not going to go into historical linguistics right now. সেটা আমার কাজ না। যে যখন পড়বে linguistics তখন সেটা পড়বে। পড়ে বেঁচে থাকতে পারবে কিনা সেটা আমার ব্যাপার, দেখার বিষয় না। Historical linguistics অবশ্য undergrad historical linguistics পড়ায় না। I'm not so sure. Masters আছে history of English language. Okay. So
লিঙ্গুইস্টিকের উপর মেজর করা শেষ।
তোমাদের কি historical linguistics পড়ায় নাই?
না,
Great vowel shift পড়ায় নাই?
ফনেটিক্স ফনোলজি পড়াইছে, সিনট্যাক্স,
Phonetics phonology পড়েছে কিন্তু great vowel shift পড়া নাই তোমরা?
হ্যাঁ ভালো শীত পড়ছি,
But
অত
vowel shift,
খেয়াল করে পড়ি নাই।
then how can you call yourself a linguistics major if you don't know the very basics of these, historical linguistics like vowel shift and all these things? That's basically you're talking about the linguistic study of the structure. That's basically you're talking about the structure. How did the structure change? How did English language change?
ছিল
কিসে কোন কোর্সে ছিল এটা? ফোনেটিক্সে?
জি।
ভাওয়াল তো তোমার এতেও চলে আসবে। If you're talking about great vowel shift, it's not just pronunciation. Structure চলে আসবে তোমার, structure of English language চলে আসবে।
না ওটা ওই কোর্স নেই নাই মেবি আমি।
বেসিক কোর্স, লিঙ্গুইস্টিক্স এর মেজরদের জন্য বেসিক কোর্স, স্ট্রাকচার অফ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, ইন্ট্রো টু লিঙ্গুইস্টিক্স এর মধ্যে চলে আসবে, সেমান্টিক্স এর মধ্যে চলে আসবে। All right, moving on. So the definition of language. What is a language? It's a system of symbols used by people to communicate. System of symbols. মনের ভাব প্রকাশ করার জন্য কিন্তু আমরা আনছি না এখন। System of symbols. অনেকগুলো একটা, there's a set of symbols that are used for communication within a particular community. Okay. Verbal languages communicate thoughts and feelings. Each verbal language consists of a lexicon, which is a collection of words and expressions, phonology, which are sounds used to pronounce words, and syntax and grammar, which are rules for combining words to form sentences. So তিনটা জিনিস আছে প্রত্যেকটা ভাষার মধ্যে। You have particularly vocabulary and expressions. You have sounds for those words and expressions, and you have rules to form sentences to create meaning. It's just not randomly আমি একটা দুটা ওয়ার্ড জোগাড় করে দিয়ে যোগ করে দিয়ে সেটাকে আমি বলছি যে I have it makes sense. It needs to make sense. So we have rules for formation. So anyone who understands and can communicate using a particular language belongs to the community of that particular language. And that is why languages are different, communities are different. যে সে স্প্যানিশ বলছে, সে স্প্যানিশ বুঝতে পারে, সে হয়তো বা ইংলিশ বুঝতে পারে না বা বাংলা বলতে পারবে না। সে স্প্যানিশ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ কমিউনিটিতে আছে কিন্তু বাংলা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ কমিউনিটিতে নাই। So language community is the larger community where all the users of the particular language can communicate with each other. And in terms of number of population, the largest language community in the world কি হতে পারে? Number of speakers.
Chinese.
Yes, Chinese, particularly probably Mandarin. Chinese এর অনেকগুলো ডায়ালেক্ট আছে, সবচেয়ে পপুলার ডায়ালেক্ট হচ্ছে ম্যান্ডারিন। এছাড়াও আছে হকিয়ান আছে, ক্যান্টোনিজ আছে, হংকং এ ক্যান্টোনিজ বলে। Okay, এবং when you listen to them, you will feel that they are completely two different languages, whereas they're actually not known as separate languages, they're known as dialects. Okay, Bangla is there, by the way. 6 number বা 7 নম্বরে আছে। Largest language community in the world এর মধ্যে। Population matters. Now, what's a dialect? Language is a really collection of dialect. A dialect is a unique form of a more general language. So we have our Bangla language, প্রচলিত Bangla language, and then we have our own regional dialects, Satgaya, Siliti, Borishale. So all of you have your own dialects, your own way of pronouncing the words and expressions in a more unique manner. And that is why when we have dialectical differences, sometimes communication becomes a bit difficult. So people who speak a particular dialect belong to speech community. So what's the difference? A language community is bigger, deals with the full language. A speech community is smaller, which deals with dialects. Clear so far?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, my question to you, who decides which dialect is standard?
Sorry, ma'am, can you repeat?
Who decides which dialect is standard?
Maybe the most spoken dialect is considered to be the standard.
Okay, that is one answer.
রাইটার্স।
Really? এত privilege পায় এরা?
চলিত ভাষা তো বাংলাতে যখন আসছে রাইটার্সদের থ্রুতেই আসছে, কারণ আমরা যে আগে সাধু ভাষা ছিল ওখান থেকে চলিত ভাষা কনভার্সনে ওই রাইটারদের একটা রোল আই থিঙ্ক আছে, বাট আই মাইট বি রং।
They have. See, when it comes to language, more or less সবারই কিছু না কিছু part থেকে থাকে। আচ্ছা, so let's talk about our neighboring country. They have hundreds of languages. Okay, and North languages are significantly different from South languages. We know that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
আচ্ছা, now ওদের constitution অনুযায়ী দুটা language is national language. What are they?
English is one of them,
Yes,
and probably Hindi.
Hindi. So English and Hindi are national languages. Why not any language from the South as national language?
I think, ma'am, because the Hindi speaking people are in power, that's why they decided to have their languages as the national language.
That is the exact answer. See, the people who are in power get to decide the language. Think about our 1952 movement. Trace it back. Why did the movement take place? It's because the people who were in power, even though they might have been minority speakers in terms of population, people who were in power tried to impose a particular language. They didn't succeed. It doesn't mean that other people didn't succeed. In the history, you will find many places where the conquerors imposed their cultural language to the conquered ones. And that is how languages started disappearing dying out, and even changing. Okay, so it's because in 47, when the partition took, when they got their independence, the people who were in power or the powerhouses, যারা ছিল, the leadership, they were Hindi speaking. That is why, since the leadership spoke Hindi, it became the language, national language. For us, it has always been Bangla. By constitution, আমাদের কিন্তু একটাই national language, which is Bangla. But in India, by constitution, they have duita language. Why? Because the South opposed of Hindi only. They have been trying, সেই 1947 সাল থেকে, they are trying continuously to have just one national language, but they have failed to pass it through the parliament because the South always opposed. That is why both Hindi and English are their national languages by constitution. যেখানে আমাদের একটাই by constitution. Moving on, characteristics of language. So first of all, language is arbitrary. In any language, the words used to represent things are arbitrary symbols. There is not necessarily a literal connection between a word and the thing it represents. For a word to have meaning, it must be recognized by the members of the language or speech community as standing for a particular object, idea, or feeling. তার মানে, the word we create and the meaning we assign to the word depends on the language and speech community. For example, this is what? What is this called?
An iPhone.
Okay, let's call it a phone. iPhone or phone. It's a phone. So we have attached a object, এটার এরকম দেখতে যে অবজেক্ট গুলো আছে, ওই অবজেক্ট গুলোকে আমরা কি বলছি? ফোন বলছি। Okay, now it's not just this particular object. Objects that have a function, look like a particular type, are given the word phone. So we are coming up with this common noun, phone. It's arbitrary. We could have given a different name to this object. We all agreed this is a phone. Or we all agreed a objecta is a bottle. Everyone in that language community agrees to call this a bottle, not a phone. So that is why your vocabulary or the meaning is arbitrary. It's not fixed, it's only given by the particular language community. They need to agree on the meaning. Next, language is abstract. Not only is language abstract, arbitrary, but it is also abstract. Say, for example, words can have different meanings. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So the word shower, shower, meaning key.
Ghusl.
Is that the only meaning?
No, ma'am. Also, the thing we
Love
use for
shower
showering is
বলে।
also called a shower.
Exactly. So it's abstract. Words don't have fixed meaning. It depends on how we're using them, the context where it's being used. That is why language is abstract. And finally, languages change over time. Have you noticed any changes in the language you're using right now? Have you observed enough?
No, ma'am. Maybe some
Oh,
spellings, but not so much in language.
তোমরা তো সবাই জেনজি লিঙ্গুয়া ঢুকাই দিচ্ছ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে। Isn't that a
Then yes,
change?
ma'am. Yeah, then yes.
Exactly. So, time and again, language has evolved. You think English was spoken exactly the way we are speaking right now as little as 50 years ago?
Probably no, ma'am.
No. So, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, how was English spoken? Not really like this, that way we're speaking right now. That means it has changed. We call it evolution. Okay. So languages evolve over time. If it doesn't and it becomes stagnant, then there is a big chance for the language to be dying out. Okay. Now, my question is, what do you mean by language dying out?
We stop using that part of the language, I guess.
What is the sole purpose behind language?
Communication.
Communication. Okay. So when we use language, we primarily use it for communication, exchange, greetings, everyday to day communication. But if you stop using a language for communication because you have better alternatives, that language is being it starts dying out. ছোটবেলা থেকে পড়ে এসছি বাংলা আসছে কোত্থেকে? অরিজিন
মাতৃভাষা থেকে।
মাতৃভাষা। বাংলা
ইন্দো
তো আমাদের
ইউরোপীয়
মাতৃভাষা,
ভাষা।
রাজ্য ভাষা
সংস্কৃত থেকে এসছে,
সংস্কৃত
রাইট?
ভাষা।
সংস্কৃত থেকে।
আচ্ছা, তো সংস্কৃত জিনিসটা কি, ভাষাটা কি?
মানে যে
Ma'am,
ভাষাটা
it's
বেশি।
a dead language. It's not used anymore.
So that means it used to be a language, it is a language that was actually used for day to day communication. People spoke that language. Maybe hundreds of years ago, people actually spoke that language. They used that language for communication. But over time, people stopped using that language and it just died. So there are still people who can read and write it and who can probably speak it, but it is no longer used for normal সাধারণ communication. তাহলে বাংলা আসলো কোত্থেকে? ওয়ান ফাইন ডে একজন বলল যে আজকে আমি অন্যভাবে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ বলবো, এন্ড দেন বাংলা পুট করে হয়ে গেল। Hold on, I have a phone call. Sorry about that. I was just literally training someone how to create a virtual classroom link because people don't know how to create pages and then how to set the virtual classroom link. You think you guys don't know? We don't know as well. Right. কইছিলাম where was I? Are you guys still with me?
ম্যাম সংস্কৃত ভাষা যে ডাই মরে গেছে।
Dead
Oh, acha.
language.
Dead language, yeah. Right. So we talked about dead languages. So languages evolve over time. Similarly, that is why the answer to the question, Jay, why is children there, oxen there, but then we have buses. It's just something called the Great Bowel Shift, যেটা পুরোটুকু সবগুলা ওয়ার্ডকে কভার করতে পারে নাই. This is how languages die and languages evolve. That is why Sanskrit died, Latin died. Latin used to be a full language as well. Latin died, Sanskrit died, but they still exist as dead languages. এরকম করে these are like big languages because এটার অনেকগুলো বংশধর আছে কিন্তু এরকম করে অনেকগুলো ছোট ছোট ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ যাদের কোনো বংশধর নাই they just completely disappeared. And those who do anthropology and linguistics, যারা scientific linguistics বা আছে বা historical linguistics আছে, they have been trying to study and piece together the language. Earlier languages are easy because written document আছে, but যেসব ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজে কোনো written document নাই, then it becomes difficult. Someone was telling me যে বাংলা আসছে ইন্দো-ইউরোপিয়ান থেকে. Indo-European is a hypothetical language that we have established that existed millions of years ago, যেটার থেকে Bangla came out, Sanskrit and then Bangla. On that note, English language is also Bangla language's cousin. Do you know that? আমরা একই ফ্যামিলির মানুষ.
Yay.
Yay, I know. Okay, so English and Bangla both come from Indo-European languages. Indo-European একটা ব্রাঞ্চ হচ্ছে কি জার্মানিক, একটা ব্রাঞ্চ হচ্ছে কি ইন্ডিক, ওখান থেকে আসছে। ইন্ডিক থেকে ইন্ডিয়ানটা আসছে আর জার্মানি থেকে জার্মান ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, ইংলিশ ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ এখান থেকে আসছে। ইংলিশ ইজ অ্যাকচুয়ালি more Anglo-Frisian than French. Anyway, moving on to semantics. What is semantics?
Meaning of language.
Semantics is essentially when we have all these words আমাদের সামনে আছে, we need to put them together to form sentences, right? To create meaning. So semantics tells you when we put words together and we form meaning of the words, একটা পাশাপাশি বসায় যে অ্যাকচুয়াল মিনিংটা আসছে সেটাকে আমরা semantic meaning বলছি. So semantic meaning is derived from the words themselves and how they are arranged into sentences. ওয়ার্ডগুলা with their own particular meaning আমি বসায় বসায় সাজাচ্ছি যে মিনিংটা ক্রিয়েট করছে, that is called semantic meaning. Okay, now although we learn new words every day, our ability to express our thoughts and feelings and to understand others is limited by the size and accuracy of our vocabulary, which is true. So sometimes identifying the meanings of the words become difficult because we have two types of meaning, denotative meaning and connotative meaning. This is important for your exam. Denotation and connotation. So what is denotation? Denotation is the explicit meaning found in the dictionary of a language community. That means আমরা আক্ষরিক যে মিনিং, লিটারাল মিনিং বলছি, যেটা তুমি ডিকশনারি খুললে বের করতে পারবা, that is called the denotative meaning. But words can be implied, have implied meaning as well. I mean, think about it. The word Karen is a name, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But do we use Karen just as a name these days?
No,
Ma'am, it's used as a slur now.
It's an
Exactly.
adjective.
It has become complete. It has become an adjective. It is from noun. It's a noun and it's an adjective. Okay. So here's the thing. It's called an implied meaning or connotative meaning. So connotation is the implicit or additional meaning we associate with a word. So we have denotation and connotation. Moving on to page 51, social linguistics. What is social linguistics?
সোশ্যালি কালচার টু কালচার ভ্যারি করে যে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ মানে আমরা মানে সোশ্যালে যে থাকি, যেমন আমরা এক ভাষা বা পুরান ঢাকার ভাষা তো আলাদা, তো সোশ্যালি যে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজটা আসে ওইটাই সোশ্যাল ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ।
Okay. So
And does
social
social
linguistics, yeah.
linguistics means the dialect we use?
Come again, Mubashir, একটু clear করে বলো।
Ma'am, does social linguistic means the dialect we use for our language?
Not really. Social linguistics is a branch of linguistics that we study. It's an entire branch. It looks at how society influences language use.
Okay.
So you may have a sentence, I want to eat rice. Okay. So depending on the culture in the society, the meaning of the language can be interpreted differently of the same sentence. You may have a semantic meaning, you may have a pragmatic meaning, and you may have a sociolinguistic meaning. Make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So sociolinguistic meaning varies according to the norms of a particular culture or co-culture. So same sentence, same language, same code, two different cultures may be interpreted two different ways. Also, your society and your culture teaches you how to use the language. Okay, so we need to learn how cultures influence language. First, cultures have norms that assign meaning to specific words and combination of words that may be different from their semantic meaning. তার মানে হচ্ছে কি, say the word Karen. Okay, if you say Karen in Bangla, in general, those who don't know, not familiar with the context of the word Karen, will only see it as a proper noun. Whereas we are not actually using it as a noun, we sometimes use it as an adjective as well. So it's the culture in the society that assigns specific meaning to words that can be only understood within that particular cultural context. Another example, the word pretty, সুন্দর, আর কোনো মিনিং থাকতে পারে pretty?
It can be used to measure
সমাজের
something,
ঠিক
and
যেমন
it's pretty obvious, it's pretty normal.
Okay, so your language, your culture is assigning the meaning pretty with obvious meaning pretty women. How about pretty men?
Weird.
Why?
সোশ্যালি ওটা যায় না তাই।
I mean, সুন্দর ছেলে বলতে সমস্যা কি?
সোশ্যাল ব্যারিয়ার।
ছেলেদের কাছ থেকে শুনি, আপনাদেরকে সুন্দর বলতে সমস্যা কি, প্রিটি বলতে সমস্যা কি?
এটা তো বুঝি না,
It's
ma'am.
not masculine enough in our society.
ম্যাম সুন্দর বলা যায় বাট প্রীতি শোনা
সুন্দর বলা যায় কিন্তু প্রিটি বলা যাবে না।
ইয়েস ম্যাম এরকম লাগে আর কি।
কেমন
Ma'am,
কেমন
we're
লাগে?
basically not actually used to add pretty with the boys.
It's
It's
the culture.
socially, yeah, that's the culture we are
It's
in.
your society, it's your culture that's telling you
Yes,
handsome
ma'am.
is with men and pretty is with girls.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that means that I can't call someone handsome girl. Handsome is a word that is associated with masculinity. Pretty is a word that is associated with femininity. অথচ language is abstract and arbitrary. Connecting much? এখন বুঝা যাচ্ছে?
Yes, ma'am.
Second, cultures also develop different norms about what is appropriate to say to whom, by whom, when, and about what. So it is your culture that teaches you. কোন মুরব্বীর বাসায় গেছো, সবার আগে সালাম দিতে হবে, যাওয়ার সময় সালাম দিতে হবে, আসার সময় সালাম দিতে হবে। It's a cultural thing. You are using the same language, by the way. You're using the same language, but culturally, it's not the same. Make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Finally, preferred verbal style differs from culture to culture, particularly in terms of how direct or indirect one ought to be. High context, low context. Again, you're using the same language communities, vocabulary and expressions, but sometimes you belong to high context culture, sometimes you belong to low context culture. This is how culture influences your communication. Yes, Mubashir?
No, no, I just agreed. I just said yes.
Okay. So we're done with this chapter. Next, I'm going to be talking, before I let you guys go, I'm going to be talking about your quiz a little bit. একটু brief idea দিয়ে রাখি so that you can start preparing in this next 4 or 5 days. Okay. So as of right now, if we have an in-person class next Monday, then I want to take your first quiz on 23rd February. I want to take quiz 1 on 23rd February. So in between, we will have 2 classes, 16 তারিখ এবং 18 তারিখ। ঠিক আছে? As of right now, dates are always subject to change. এখন আসি syllabus কি? Syllabus is first 3 chapters: communication, perception, intercultural communication. Next comes question pattern and mark distribution. It will be out of 10 marks, just one question. It will be an analytical question. Okay, so that means that তোমাকে কোনো definition মুখস্থ করতে হবে না, কোনো specific example মুখস্থ করতে হবে না, কিন্তু you need to understand the concepts, remember the names of the concepts so that you can connect them with the story. So what am I going to give you? I'm going to give you a 1 paragraph short story in about 100 to 150 words. একটা short story দিব যেখানে there will be at least 2 বা 3 বা multiple characters, and the story will be concentrating around communication. Communication হচ্ছে, whether it's intra or inter. Okay, তোমাদের কি কাজ করতে হবে? You have to read the story, understand what's happening and why it is happening. You need to connect the why to the concepts of the chapters. Say for example, দুজন কথা বলছে, you can say that they have a historical context in between them, that's why they are able to understand each other. Or একজনের মেজাজ খুব খারাপ, তার মেজাজ খারাপ probably because of psychological context. একজন তার দাদাকে ভয় পাচ্ছে, কেন পাচ্ছে? Because that person may have audience based apprehension. Okay, so what you're going to be doing is writing what's happening in the story and connecting it with the topic. You're not going to be writing a summary. You're not going to be writing your own opinion on the story itself. You're just you're just going to be concentrating on how the connecting the story, the communication with the concepts that we have gone through in the first 3 chapters. This also includes the cultural aspects as well. Make sense? Now, how to write? I will be showing you sample. We will be doing writing practice on Wednesday. Agami Shombar ami sample দেখাবো. We'll go through it. Agami Budbar we are going to be practicing writing. আচ্ছা. So now, কিভাবে লিখবে? The answers for the quiz should be about 150 words to maximum 200 words. About 150 words, give or take. 120 to 150. Okay. It should be in minimum 2 to maximum 4 paragraphs. Minimum 2, maximum 4 paragraphs. So that means you can write in 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs, or maximum 4 paragraphs. Considering you are writing 4 paragraphs. আচ্ছা, যদি 4 paragraph লিখি, then the very first couple of sentences you're going to be writing, introductory sentences that you're going to be writing, should be telling the reader what the story is about. In first person I, using present simple or present indefinite tense, first person I, in active sentences, write what is the story about or what is happening in one or two sentences. You don't have to give an entire summary of the story. Just what is the story about in one or two sentences at the beginning, introductory sentences. Followed by should be like a thesis statement where you will list all the points you have observed in the story. Like a thesis statement which you will list in which you will list all the points you have observed in the story. In this story, I have found psychological context, historical context, small group communication, public relations, social context, social context, Am I still there? Can you guys hear
Yes, ma'am.
me?
Yes.
আমার নেট কানেকশন ডিস্টার্ব করছে something is connecting and disconnecting আচ্ছা hold on বেশি সময় বাকি নাই I'm still in the class, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
আচ্ছা
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
moving on কোথায় ছিলাম
Thesis statement, ma'am.
where you are going to be listing all the things you have observed এরপরে if you're writing 4 paragraphs তখন আমরা first paragraph ওখানেই ছেড়ে দিচ্ছি তারপরে মাঝখানে দুটো প্যারাগ্রাফে in the same hierarchy as the story you are going to be প্রথমে আমি দেখেছি এই দুজন ক্যারেক্টার ছিল তারা এই নিয়ে কথা বলছে this indicates this context this setting এভাবে করে maintaining the hierarchy of the story you're going to be analyzing and pointing out towards the points remember this you don't need to give your own opinion and you also don't need to give any definitions of the points this is the মাঝখানে দুটো paragraph finally if you are writing 4 paragraphs শেষ paragraph should be a paraphrased version of the first paragraph including restated thesis and what the story was about clear any questions
No, ma'am.
okay so in the next class I'll be bringing sample to show you what it looks like before my net goes completely again let's take your attendance all right Morning Shaha Safina Islam okay my net is broken আসছি ফেরত আসছি
Yes, ma'am, you're here.
okay I think I'm back right Can you guys see me and hear me?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.